The stranger at the gate was covered in dried blood that wasn't hers, and Iskander Pavon knew instantly she was running from something worse than death. He stood in the shadowed archway of his court, 3 levels beneath the modern city of Prague, watching her pound weakly against the iron with raw knuckles. Her voice carried through the ancient stone, hoarse and breaking. "Please, I know you're down here. Please, just one night. Just hide me one night." The guards flanked him, silent and still, their white hair gleaming in the low torchlight. Iskander's own fell past his shoulders, bone pale against his black coat. He was old enough to remember when these tunnels had been carved, old enough to have sat on this throne when it was still called Bohemia, old enough to recognize real terror when he saw it. "Open it," he said quietly. The woman nearly fell through when the gate swung inward. She caught herself on her hands, gasping, dark hair falling around her face. When she looked up at him, her eyes were storm gray and desperate. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, I just need—" "Yeah, stand," Iskander commanded, descending the stone steps toward her. She struggled to her feet, swaying. Up close, he could see the blood was days old, caked into the fabric of what had once been a white dress. Ritual clothing. His jaw tightened. "What's your name?" "Natasha," she said. "Natasha Volkov. I know what you are. I know what this place is. I'm not asking for anything permanent. Just tonight. Just until dawn. Then I'll go. I promise I'll go. I'll never tell anyone." "You're lying," Iskander said softly, and she flinched. "Not about your name, but about leaving. You have nowhere to go." Her face crumpled, and she looked away, wrapping her arms around herself. "No, I don't. But I can't stay here. They'll find me eventually. I just needed one more night where I could breathe." Iskander studied her. The terror in her was genuine, bone deep. But beneath it was something else, something he hadn't seen in decades of ruling this court, a spark of defiance. She had run from whatever held her. Most humans in her position simply accepted their fate. "Who is looking for you?" "It doesn't matter. You'll turn me away if I tell you. Everyone turns me away when I tell them." "I am not everyone." He stepped closer, close enough to scent her fear, her exhaustion. "I am Iskander Pavon, and this is my domain. Nothing enters these walls without my knowledge. Nothing leaves without my permission. Tell me what hunts you, or I will have you removed." She looked up at him then, really looked, and he saw the moment she understood what she was facing. Not a monster from a story, but something far more dangerous. A king who meant every word he spoke. "The servants of the endless night," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "They've had my family for 3 generations. We serve the master in the dark. We bleed for him, we bring him offerings, we keep his temple. I'm the eldest daughter. Tomorrow is my dedication. After that, I won't be able to run anymore." Iskander went very still. "The servants of the endless night," he repeated, and something cold and furious unfurled in his chest. "Tell me about this master." "He speaks to us from behind the veil," Natasha said. Her voice was flat now, reciting. "He has lived for 10,000 years. He feeds on blood and shadow. We are his chosen, bound to him by sacred oath. If we fail him, he'll destroy us all." "Has anyone ever seen this master?" She blinked at him. No. Only the high priest enters the inner sanctum, but we hear his voice. We feel his power." Iskander turned away from her, walking several paces back toward his throne before he spoke again. Behind him, his lieutenant Casimir watched with ancient eyes. They had lived through centuries together. They knew the signs of a Khan when they saw one. "This master is no vampire," Iskander said. Natasha stared at him. "What?" "He is a lie, a puppet show, conducted by your high priest." Iskander faced her again. "Real vampires do not hide behind veils. We do not require worship. We do not bind human families into generation servitude. This cult is a fraud, using the fear of my kind to control you." "No." Natasha shook her head. "No, that's the things he knows, the things he can do. Parlor tricks, ancient knowledge passed down, perhaps some genuine magic learned from stolen books. But he is not what he claims." Iskander descended the steps again, coming to stand directly in front of her. "You ran from a human monster, Natasha Volkov, which makes your situation both better and far worse than you imagined." "I don't understand." "Better, because he can be killed like any man. Worse, because you believed he was a god, and that belief has kept you and your family enslaved." He reached out. tilting her chin up with one pale finger. "You begged me for one night. I am refusing your request." Her face went white. "Please, you will not go home tomorrow. You will not go home the day after. You will never return to that place again." His voice was iron, absolute. "This is not a negotiation. I am not giving you a choice. You are under my protection now, and that vow is binding until I release you from it. Do you understand?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why would you do that?" The question surprised him. Iskander studied her, this fragile human who had run until she collapsed at his door, who had dared to hammer on the gates of a vampire court begging for mercy. "Because you asked," he said simply. "Because you tried to save yourself when no one else would, and because these frauds have been using my reputation to terrorize your family, which makes their crimes my responsibility to answer." Natasha swayed on her feet. Iskander caught her before she fell, lifting her easily into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, her body worn down by years of inadequate food and constant stress. "Bring Elena," he said to Casimir. "This one needs medical attention, food, and rest. Place her in the east wing, where the sun cannot reach, and summon the others. We have work to do." He carried Natasha through the vast stone corridors of his court, past tapestries and ancient paintings, through halls lit by both torchlight and carefully concealed electric lamps. The modern world existed above them, but down here, time moved differently. His people had learned to blend eras, taking what was useful from each century and discarding the rest. Natasha stirred against his chest. "I shouldn't be here. They'll come looking." "Let them come," Iskander said. "Though I suspect they will not. They will assume you died in your flight. They will hold a ritual mourning and replace you with another girl from another family, unless we stop them entirely." "You can't. The master is a man," Iskander interrupted, "and I have been ending men who abuse power for longer than your country has existed." He brought her to a chamber carved into the rock, furnished with a bed that would have belonged in a palace, thick curtains and soft rugs over the stone floor. Elena was already waiting, her white hair braided down her back, her pale face serene. She was one of his oldest companions, turned during the Renaissance, and she had lost none of her healer's instincts in the centuries since. "Oh, sweet girl," Elena murmured when she saw Natasha. "Let me help you." Iskander set Natasha down carefully on the bed. She looked up at him, those gray eyes still full of disbelief. "Get some rest," he said. "When you wake, we'll talk more." "I don't trust this," Natasha whispered. "I don't trust safety. Every time I thought I was safe, they found me." Something in his chest tightened. Iskander knelt beside the bed, bringing himself to her eye level. "I know. Trust takes time. For now, simply rest. I will be here when you wake. I will not allow them to take you." She searched his face, looking for the lie. Whatever she saw there made her shoulders sag with exhaustion. "Okay." Elena shooed him out, and Iskander returned to the throne room where his inner circle had gathered. 5 vampires, all ancient, all trusted. They stood around the carved table that served as their war council, their faces uniformly pale and beautiful in the flickering light. "Tell us," Casimir said. He was the oldest after Iskander, his white hair cut short, his eyes black as coal. Iskander explained what Natasha had told him, watching their expressions darken as he spoke. When he finished, Casimir swore in a language that hadn't been spoken in 1,000 years. "The servants of the endless night," repeated Lenora, who had been a queen before her turning. "I have heard whispers of them. They operate in the old quarter, in the tunnels beneath the Jewish cemetery. Very secretive, very well-funded." "They are using our reputation to enslave human families," Iskander said flatly. "They have turned us into their bogeyman, their false god. This cannot stand." "Agreed," said Theron, who had been a warrior in ancient Greece. "But exposing them creates a problem. If we reveal ourselves in the process, if the human world learns that vampires are real, we violate the old pacts," Iskander finished. "We risk exposure not just of this court, but of all our kind worldwide. The masquerade has protected us for centuries. I will not shatter it lightly." "Then how do we proceed?" Lenora asked. Iskander leaned against the table, thinking. "Carefully. We cannot storm their temple with supernatural force, but we can dismantle them from within. We can expose the fraud without revealing what we truly are." "That will take time," Casimir said. Investigation, infiltration. Yes. Iskander looked at each of them in turn. The girl stays here while we work. She is not to be harmed, not to be frightened, and not to be treated as a prisoner. She is a guest under my protection. Make certain everyone understands. Of course, Elena said from the doorway. She had appeared silently, as was her way. She is sleeping now, exhausted and malnourished, but she will recover. What did you promise her, Iskander? That she would never go home again. Elena's eyebrows rose. Bold. Does she understand what that means? Not yet. Iskander straightened, but she will. Over the next 3 nights, Natasha slowly came back to life. Iskander watched the transformation with something he hadn't felt in decades. Interest, yes, but more than that, fascination. She explored the court cautiously at first, keeping close to the walls, clearly expecting the trap to spring at any moment. But as the hours passed and nothing harmed her, as Elena brought her proper meals and Casimir nodded respectfully when they passed in the halls, she began to unbend. On the 3rd night, Iskander found her in the library, staring at the shelves of books that climbed toward the vaulted ceiling. "Can you read?" he asked from the doorway. She jumped, spinning to face him. "Yes. My mother taught me. The high priest said it was acceptable as long as we only read the sacred texts, but she taught me other things too when he wasn't watching." "Your mother sounds clever." She was. Natasha's face shadowed. "She died 2 years ago. She tried to run like I did. They caught her." Iskander moved into the library, coming to stand beside her. "What happened?" "Public execution, a lesson to the rest of us about the price of betrayal." Her voice was steady, but her hands were fisted at her sides. "They slit her throat in the temple and told us the master had claimed her for her disobedience. I wanted to die too that day, but my younger sister needed me. I had to stay for Mira." "Where is your sister now?" "Still there, still serving." Natasha looked at him, and her eyes were full of anguish. "You said you could stop them, but even if you can, what if they hurt her in retaliation? What if by running, I made things worse for her?" Iskander considered his words carefully. "If we do nothing, your sister faces a life of slavery, ending in either a ritual death or her own desperate flight. If we act, there is risk, yes, but there is also the possibility of freedom. True freedom for her and everyone else trapped in that cult. How can you possibly dismantle them without anyone knowing what you are? Would you like to see?" She blinked at him. "What?" "Come with me tonight. Watch how we operate. You deserve to understand what I am asking of you when I tell you to trust me." Natasha hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right." They left the court through a passage that emerged in the basement of an old building, now converted to expensive apartments. Iskander had owned the structure for 2 centuries, long before the current residents moved in. It provided cover for his people to come and go. The night air was cold, autumn settling into Prague with sharp fingers. Natasha wrapped the cloak Elena had given her more tightly around her shoulders as they walked through the streets. Iskander kept pace beside her, scanning the darkness automatically for threats. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To speak with someone who knows your cult. A journalist who has been investigating them for years." They found Katerina Novak in her cluttered apartment near the river, surrounded by papers and photographs. She was a woman in her 50s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, and she didn't seem remotely surprised when Iskander appeared at her door with Natasha in tow. "You," she said to Iskander. "I was wondering when you would take an interest." "You know me?" "I know of you. Prague is full of stories about the pale man who owns half the old city and never ages. I'm a journalist. I pay attention." Katerina stepped back, gesturing them inside. "And you must be from the servants. I recognize the dress, even torn." Natasha nodded mutely. Katerina poured them tea, which Iskander accepted, but did not drink. The journalist spread photographs across her table, images of the temple entrance, of robed figures coming and going, of families with the hollow look of long-term abuse in their eyes. "I have been trying to expose them for 5 years, Katerina said, "but they are very careful. The families will not talk. The high priest, whoever he is, never shows his face in public. And there are powerful people protecting them, politicians, businessmen, people who benefit from the cult's existence." "How do they benefit?" Iskander asked. Money laundering mostly. The cult generates enormous revenue from their followers. That money flows out into legitimate businesses, getting cleaned in the process. And there are rumors of blackmail. The dedication ceremonies are recorded. Young girls forced into who knows what. Those recordings give them leverage. Natasha made a small, pained sound. Iskander glanced at her, saw the horror dawning in her face as she realized what she had been running toward. "We need to get inside," he said to Katerina. "We need evidence solid enough to bring to the authorities without any doubt. And how do you propose to do that? The temple is locked down tighter than a bank vault." Iskander smiled, and there was nothing kind in it. "I'm very good at going places I'm not invited." They spent the rest of the night planning. Katerina had blueprints of the underground complex, stolen from city records. She had the names of the families involved, the dates of ceremonies, the financial trails she had traced. What she didn't have was the final proof, the smoking gun that would bring the entire structure down. "The recordings," Natasha said quietly. "They keep them in the inner sanctum, every dedication, every ritual. The high priest uses them to maintain control." "Can you describe the layout?" Iskander asked. She closed her eyes, remembering. "The main temple is the largest chamber. Behind it is the preparation room, where we dress for ceremonies. Behind that is the inner sanctum, where only the high priest and his closest followers can go. There's a vault in the back wall. That's where he keeps the most valuable things, including the recordings." "Yes." Iskander looked at Katerina. "If I can retrieve those recordings and bring them to you, can you ensure they reach the right authorities, people who cannot be bought or threatened?" "I have contacts," Katerina said carefully, "international investigators who have been looking for a way into the cult. If you can get me evidence, I can make sure it goes public in a way that cannot be suppressed." "Good." Iskander stood. "Give me 3 nights." As they walked back through the dark streets, Natasha was quiet. Iskander let her process what she had learned, what she had agreed to by coming with him. When they were nearly back to the entrance to his court, she finally spoke. "I was going to be raped tomorrow night." "Yes." "And they were going to record it and use it to control me for the rest of my life." "Yes." She stopped walking, standing in the middle of the cobblestone street. Above them, the old buildings leaned together, blocking out most of the sky. Why didn't anyone tell us? Why didn't anyone warn us? Because the cult is very good at isolation, and because people fear what they do not understand. Vampires, even false ones, are terrifying to those who believe in them. Natasha looked at him, really looked at him. "But you're real. You're actually a vampire." "I am." "Do you drink blood?" "Yes." "Do you kill people?" "Not unless I must, and never innocents." Iskander held her gaze. "I am not a monster from your nightmares, Natasha. I am simply old and powerful, and I have seen enough evil in this world to recognize it when it wears a holy mask." She took a shaky breath. "The vow you made, that I would never go home again. Did you mean it?" "Every word." "Why?" The question hung between them in the cold air. Iskander could have given her a dozen answers, all of them true, because she had come to him for help. Because he hated frauds who used his kind as their shield, because dismantling the cult was strategically necessary to protect his court. But the truth was simpler and more complicated. Because in 600 years, I have never seen someone fight so hard to save themselves with so little hope of success. And that kind of courage deserves to be protected. Natasha's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not brave. I'm terrified. I've been terrified my entire life. Being brave does not mean being unafraid. It means acting despite the fear." He reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was more intimate than he had intended, and he saw her breath catch. "Come. We have much to prepare." The next 3 nights were a blur of planning and reconnaissance. Iskander brought Theron and Casimir with him on the first night, the 3 of them moving through the tunnels beneath Prague like ghosts. They found the temple exactly where Natasha had described it, a warren of chambers cut into the rock beneath the old cemetery. Guards patrolled the outer chambers, but they were human, easily avoided. Iskander noted the patterns, the shift changes, the weak points in their coverage. He could have killed them all in seconds, but that would have left evidence of something supernatural. Instead, they mapped and watched and planned. "There," Casimir whispered, pointing to a ventilation shaft that opened onto the preparation room. "That is our entrance." On the second night, they went deeper, timing their movements to the gaps in the patrols. Iskander slipped through the preparation room, seeing the racks of white dresses, the ritual tools, the stains on the stone floor that could only be blood. His jaw tightened, but he kept moving. The inner sanctum was protected by a modern lock, sophisticated and expensive. Iskander studied it for a moment, then produced a set of tools from his coat. Theron raised an eyebrow. "I have lived through every era of human innovation," Iskander said quietly as he worked. "I adapt." The lock clicked open. Inside, the sanctum was smaller than expected, more of a storage room than a holy space. Shelves lined the walls filled with books, artifacts, and locked boxes. And there, in the back, was the vault. Iskander approached it carefully, examining the mechanism. State-of-the-art, biometric security. He would need the high priest's fingerprint to open it. "This will require a more direct approach," he murmured. On the third night, they implemented the plan. Natasha had provided a description of the high priest, a man named Dominic, who had led the cult for 20 years. Katerina had provided an address, a luxurious apartment in the new part of the city. Iskander went alone, leaving his people to maintain surveillance on the temple. He found Dominic in his living room, drinking expensive wine and reviewing financial statements. The man was in his 50s, well-fed and well-dressed, the picture of prosperity built on the suffering of others. Iskander did not bother with subtlety. He simply appeared in the doorway, letting Dominic see him, letting the man's mind grapple with the impossibility of a stranger in his locked apartment. "Who the fuck are you?" Dominic demanded, reaching for something behind the couch. "I would not do that," Iskander said softly. "I am faster than you can possibly imagine." Dominic froze. "What do you want? Money?" "I have money. I want you to open your vault." The color drained from Dominic's face. "I don't know what you are talking about." Iskander moved, crossing the room in a blur of motion. He caught Dominic by the throat, lifting him off his feet and pinning him against the wall. The man's eyes went wide with terror as he stared into Iskander's face, seeing the predator beneath the civilized mask. "Do not lie to me," Iskander said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm not a policeman. I'm not bound by human laws. I'm something much worse, and I have run out of patience with men like you. You will take me to your temple. You will open the vault. You will give me everything inside. And if you refuse, I will make you wish the master you invented was real, because at least he might show mercy." Dominic tried to speak, couldn't, managed a frantic nod. Iskander set him down, keeping one hand on his shoulder. "Good. We leave now." They made their way through the night to the temple, Dominic stumbling in his terror, Iskander a cold presence at his back. The guards saw the high priest and opened the gates immediately, not noticing the pale man behind him. Iskander compelled them with a look, a touch of the supernatural power he usually kept leashed. They would stand and wait and remember nothing. It was a minor violation of the masquerade, but necessary. In the inner sanctum, Dominic's hand shook as he pressed it to the biometric scanner. The vault opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing stacks of hard drives, USB drives, and old videotapes. "All of it," Iskander said, "every recording." Dominic began pulling the storage devices out, piling them into a bag Iskander had brought. When the vault was empty, Iskander nodded. "Good. Now you will write a confession. Every crime you have committed, every family you have enslaved, every girl you have violated, all of it." "I can't," Dominic whispered. "They'll kill me. The people I work for, they will have their own problems very shortly." Iskander's voice was ice. "Right, now," Dominic wrote. His hand shook so badly the words were barely legible, but he wrote everything. When he finished, Iskander took the pages, folded them carefully, and placed them in his coat. "What happens to me now?" Dominic asked. "You wait here. In 3 hours the police will arrive. They will find you with your confession. What happens after that is between you and the justice system." Iskander leaned close, letting Dominic see the inhuman gleam in his eyes. "But know this. If you run, I will find you. If you lie, I will know. And if you ever harm another innocent person, I will return, and I will show you what real monsters do to men like you." He left Dominic cowering in the sanctum, collected his people from the shadows, and vanished into the night. By dawn, Katerina had everything: the recordings, the confession, the financial evidence she had been gathering for years. By midday, it was in the hands of international investigators, uploaded to secure servers, impossible to suppress or bury. By sunset, the story was breaking across every news outlet in Europe. The servants of the endless night exposed as a criminal organization. Human trafficking, sexual abuse, financial fraud, blackmail. The families freed, the politicians scrambling to distance themselves, the whole rotten structure collapsing under the weight of its own corruption. Iskander watched the news from his throne room, Natasha standing beside him. She was crying, silent tears streaming down her face as she watched her sister being led out of the temple by social workers, wrapped in a blanket, finally free. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." "We did it," Iskander corrected. "You ran, you asked for help, you gave us the information we needed. This victory is as much yours as mine." Natasha turned to him, and in her eyes was something he had not seen before. Not gratitude, though that was there. Not relief, though she felt that too. Something deeper, more dangerous. Trust. Real, absolute trust. "Thank you," she said. Iskander inclined his head, saying nothing. What could he say? That her trust terrified him more than any enemy. That in the short time she had been in his court, she had become more important than she should be? That somewhere, in the process of saving her, he had begun to fall? The next few weeks were chaos in the world above. Investigations spread across multiple countries as the true scope of the cult's operations came to light. More families came forward, more victims. Dominic and his inner circle were arrested, their assets seized, their names destroyed. The false temple was emptied and sealed, soon to be demolished. Natasha's sister Mira was placed in foster care temporarily while social services worked to reunify the scattered families. Natasha wanted desperately to see her, but Iskander counseled patience. "She needs time to adjust," he said gently. "She has known nothing but captivity her entire life. Seeing you now when she is still processing her freedom may be overwhelming." "I know," Natasha said, "but I promised her I would come back for her. I promised I wouldn't leave her alone. And you will keep that promise. Just give her a few more days." They were in the library again, a space Natasha had claimed as her own. She spent hours here, reading everything she could, as if trying to make up for a lifetime of denied knowledge. Iskander often joined her, content to work through his own correspondence while she explored the shelves. It felt domestic in a way he had not experienced in centuries. Comfortable, right? "Can I ask you something?" Natasha said, looking up from her book. Of course. That night when I came to your gate, why were you there? Do you usually greet every person who pounds on your door in the middle of the night?" Iskander set down his pen. "No, I was restless. I had been walking the upper halls, unable to settle. When I heard you, something told me to answer personally." "Something?" "Instinct. Intuition." He met her eyes. "Fate, perhaps, though I am not sure I believe in such things." Natasha closed her book, marking her place with a ribbon. "I've never believed in fate. Everything in my life was decided by other people. Where I lived, what I wore, what I said when I bled. There was no room for fate in the cult, only obedience. And now? Now I do not know what to believe." She stood, moving to the window that looked out onto the underground garden. Iskander had created it decades ago, a space lit by carefully positioned lights that mimicked sunlight, filled with plants that thrived in the controlled environment. "I am free. But I do not know what freedom means. I have nowhere to go, no home to return to. You vowed I would never go back, and you were right. But what do I do now?" Iskander rose, crossing to stand beside her. "What do you want to do?" "I want to stay," she said quietly. "Here, with you. But I know that is not possible. You are a vampire king. I am a human who was rescued from a cult. This is not a story where we live happily ever after." "Why not?" She looked at him, startled. "Because that is not how the world works. The world is vast and strange, and I have seen things in my long life that defy all expectation." Iskander turned to face her fully. You assume your humanity makes you lesser, but you are wrong. You survived something that would have broken most people. You ran when others accepted their chains. You hammered on the door of a monster and begged for help. That takes a kind of strength I respect more than immortality. You are not a monster. To many, I am. I have killed. I have conquered. I have done things you cannot imagine. But you saved me. Her voice was fierce now. You took an impossible risk to free my family. You could have turned me away that night. You could have decided I was not worth the trouble. But you didn't. You gave me a vow, and you kept it, and you asked nothing in return. I am asking now, Iskander said quietly. Stay. Not as an obligation, not as a debt. Stay because you choose to. Help me run this court, learn our ways, become part of this world. For how long? For as long as you wish. Natasha searched his face. What happens when I grow old and die? What happens when I am wrinkled and gray, and you are still young and beautiful? Then I will have been blessed with however many years you gave me, and I will mourn you as you deserve. That is not an answer. Iskander smiled, a rare, genuine expression. No, it is not. The real answer is more complicated. If you stay, if you choose this life, there will come a time when you must decide whether to remain human or become something else. That choice is yours alone. But until then, we have time. Years, perhaps decades. Enough to see if what I feel growing between us is real or simply the intensity of the circumstances that brought us together. And what do you feel? Natasha whispered. He reached up, cupping her face in his pale hands. Something I thought I had forgotten how to feel. Something dangerous and foolish and utterly beyond my control. Love? The beginning of it, yes. Natasha's breath hitched. I fell first. I think I started falling the moment you told me I would never go home again. Not because you were controlling me, but because it meant someone finally cared enough to fight for me. No one has ever fought for me before. Then we are both fools, Iskander murmured, and he leaned down to kiss her. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid the moment would shatter. But then Natasha made a soft sound in her throat and pressed closer, and Iskander deepened the kiss, tasting her, feeling the warmth of her humanity against his cold skin. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Natasha smiled. I want to stay. I choose to stay. Good, Iskander said, resting his forehead against hers, because I was prepared to be very persuasive if you refused. She laughed, the sound bright and free, and something in Iskander's chest loosened. This woman, who had been given every reason to fear and despair, could still laugh, could still hope. He would protect that. He would nurture it. He would build a life around it if she let him. 2 weeks later, Natasha finally got to see her sister. They met in a neutral location, a park in the daylight hours. Iskander could not accompany her, bound by the limitations of his nature, but he sent Casimir to watch from a distance, ensuring her safety. Mira was 16, dark-haired like Natasha, but thinner, more fragile. She sat on a bench, wrapped in a coat too large for her frame, and when she saw Natasha approaching, she burst into tears. You came back, Mira sobbed as Natasha pulled her into a fierce embrace. You came back for me. I promised, didn't I? Natasha held her sister tight, rocking slightly. I promised I would get us out, both of us. They told us you were dead. The high priest said the master took you as punishment. The master was a lie. There was no master, Mira, just a cruel man exploiting our fear. Mira pulled back, staring at her. But we felt his power. We heard his voice. Technology, tricks. Dominic is in jail now. All of them are. We're free. They talked for hours, Natasha explaining everything that had happened, Mira struggling to process a reality so different from everything she had known. When Natasha mentioned Iskander, Mira's eyes went wide. You're living with a vampire? A real one? Yes. Is he going to kill you? No. He saved me. He is. Natasha paused, considering. He is important to me, and I think I am important to him. Mira looked skeptical, but did not push. They talked about the future instead, about Mira finishing school, about finding a place for her to live once she was released from foster care. Natasha promised to help, to be there, to never disappear again. When they finally parted, Mira hugged her one more time, fierce and desperate. I love you. Thank you for being brave enough to run. I love you too. We are going to be all right now, both of us. Natasha returned to the court as the sun was setting, finding Iskander waiting for her in the library. He looked up from his book, reading her expression instantly. It went well? It went perfectly. Natasha crossed the room, settling onto the couch beside him. She is scared but hopeful. The counselors say she is doing better than expected. She wants to see me again next week. Good. I am glad. Natasha leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture that had become familiar over the past weeks. Iskander set down his book, wrapping an arm around her. I have been thinking, she said. About? The future. About what you said that I would have to choose eventually, human or vampire. Iskander went still. You do not need to decide now. There is no rush. I know. But I want to understand what I would be choosing. If I became like you, would I still be me? Yes and no. You would retain your memories, your personality, your core self. But you would change. Your body would change, your needs, your relationship with time. Some find the transition easy. Others struggle for decades. There's no way to predict how you would react. Would I have to leave Mira? Not immediately, but eventually, yes. She would age, and you would not. Maintaining contact would become increasingly difficult to explain. Natasha was quiet for a long moment. I do not want to lose her. I just got her back. I know, which is why I am not pushing you to choose. Live your human life, Natasha. Be there for your sister as she grows up. See the sun, taste food. Experience everything you were denied. There will be time enough for immortality later, if you still want it. And if I decide I do not want it, if I choose to remain human until I die, Iskander tightened his arm around her. Then I will love you for however long I have you, and I will carry the memory of you for the rest of my existence. That seems terribly sad for you. Perhaps, but the alternative is refusing to love you at all, and that seems worse. Natasha tilted her head up, kissing him softly. You are a romantic. I did not expect that from a vampire king. I have had 600 years to refine the art, Iskander said dryly. I would be very bad at it if I had not learned something in all that time. She laughed, and the sound filled the library, bright and warm. Iskander closed his eyes, memorizing this moment, her laughter, her warmth, the way she fit perfectly against his side. If this was all he ever got, it would be enough. But he hoped, desperately, that it would not be all. That there would be years ahead of them, decades even, to explore this strange and precious thing growing between them. Time would tell. The seasons turned, and Natasha bloomed. She took on responsibilities in the court, working with Elena to manage the household, learning from Lenora about the political intricacies of vampire society, training with Theron to defend herself. She proved quick and clever, with a talent for diplomacy that surprised everyone. She would have made a good queen, Lenora observed one evening, watching Natasha mediate a dispute between two of the younger vampires. Even as a human, she commands respect. Yes, Iskander agreed. He watched Natasha work, admiring the confidence she had gained, the way she held herself now. The broken, terrified girl who had pounded on his gates was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her own worth. He had never been more in love. They were careful to keep the relationship private at first, both aware of the complications. But gradually, it became obvious to everyone in the court that their king had taken a consort, and that the consort was not to be trifled with. There were objections, of course. Some of the older vampires were scandalized by the idea of their king attaching himself to a human. But Iskander shut down the dissent with a single look, and after that, no one dared speak against Natasha in his presence. Natasha spent her days with Mira, watching her sister heal and grow. And she spent her nights with Iskander, learning about his world, sharing stories of her own life, building something that looked remarkably like a future. One night, nearly a year after she had first come to the court, they stood together in the underground garden. Iskander had given her a key to the gate, a sign of trust in his world. She could come and go as she pleased, into the garden or the upper city, no longer a prisoner in any sense. I have been thinking, Natasha said, echoing the words she had spoken months before. Dangerous pastime, Iskander teased. She elbowed him lightly. I have been thinking about the choice, about what I want my future to look like. Iskander's heart, which had not beat in centuries, seemed to stutter in his chest. And? Mira is doing well. She will be starting university next year. She has friends, a life of her own. She does not need me the way she once did. That is good. Yes, Natasha turned to face him fully, which means I can start thinking about what I need, what I want. What do you want? You. This. Forever. She reached up, touching his face gently. I want to stay with you, not just for a human lifetime, but for as long as we both exist. I want to learn everything there is to know about your world. I want to stand beside you as your equal, not your protected human. Natasha. Her name was a prayer on his lips. Are you certain? Once done, this cannot be undone. I am certain. I have been certain for months. I was just waiting for the right moment. Iskander pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. When? Soon. After Mira's graduation. I want to see her walk across that stage, want to know she is settled and happy, and then I want to come home to you and never leave again. Home, Iskander repeated. You called this home. It is home. You are home. Natasha pulled back, looking up at him with those storm-gray eyes he had come to know so well. You promised me I would never go home again, and you were right. I will never go back to that place of fear and pain. But I have found a new home here, with you. And I choose it. I choose you. Iskander kissed her then, pouring everything he felt into it. Love, yes, but also relief, joy, hope, all the emotions he had thought long dead, resurrected by this remarkable woman who had stumbled into his court and changed everything. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I will make it as easy as I can. I will be with you through every moment of the transition, and when you wake as one of us, I will teach you everything you need to know. I know. I trust you. Those 3 words, simple and profound, were worth more than any treasure. Iskander held her close, watching the artificial sunlight play through the garden, and let himself imagine the future. Centuries stretching ahead of them, full of challenges and joy, of work and rest, of all the small moments that made a life. She had begged him to hide her for one night. He had vowed she would never go home again. And now, she was choosing to make his home her own, forever. It was more than he had ever hoped for, more than he deserved. But he would take it, treasure it, protect it with everything he had. Mira graduated in the spring, walking across the stage to receive her diploma in front of a crowd that included Natasha, several social workers, and a few carefully chosen friends from the court who could pass as human. It was a bright, warm day, and Natasha sat in the sun for hours, ignoring the discomfort, determined to be there for every moment. Afterward, she took Mira to dinner, just the 2 of them, and told her sister what she had decided. Mira listened in silence, her expression carefully neutral. When Natasha finished, she was quiet for a long time. Will I ever see you again? She finally asked. Yes, not as often, and it will become harder as you age and I do not, but I will not disappear completely, I promise. Are you happy? With him, with this choice? Happier than I have ever been in my life. Mira nodded slowly. Then I am happy for you. You deserve happiness, Natasha. After everything we went through, you deserve to choose your own path. They hugged, both crying a little, both knowing this was a turning point. They would always be sisters, always love each other. But their lives were diverging now, moving in different directions. It was bittersweet, but necessary. That night, Natasha returned to the court and told Iskander she was ready. He had prepared a room for the transition, deep in the heart of the complex where no sound could escape. The change would be painful, he warned her. 3 days of fever and agony as her body died and was reborn. He would be there the entire time, but he could not take the pain from her. I can endure it, Natasha said. I have endured worse. You should not have had to. No, but I did, and it made me strong enough for this. They lay together on the bed, and Iskander held her close, whispering reassurances as he positioned his mouth over the pulse point on her neck. I love you, he murmured. In all my centuries, I have never loved anyone as I love you. I love you too, Natasha said, now and forever. He bit down, and the world went red. The transition was everything Iskander had warned and worse. Natasha burned, her body convulsing as the venom worked through her system, rewriting her on a cellular level. She screamed until her voice gave out, clawed at the sheets, at Iskander when he tried to hold her. He bore it all with steady patience, cooling her forehead with damp cloths, whispering words of comfort she probably could not hear, never leaving her side. On the second day, she went still, her breathing shallow, her heartbeat so slow it was nearly imperceptible. Iskander monitored her constantly, checking her vitals, making sure the change was proceeding correctly. This was the most dangerous part, when the body was caught between life and death, and either state could claim her. But Natasha was strong. She fought for every breath, every sluggish beat of her heart, refusing to let go. On the third day, as the sun set above them, her heart stopped. For one terrible moment, Iskander thought he had lost her. Then, her eyes snapped open, no longer gray but a brilliant crystalline silver. She gasped, her body arching off the bed, and when she exhaled, it was with the lungs of something no longer human. "Iskander," she whispered, and her voice was different now, clearer, stronger. "I am here." He gathered her into his arms, feeling the new strength in her body, the supernatural energy that now hummed beneath her skin. "You did it. You survived." Natasha clung to him, shaking. "I can hear everything. The torches in the hall, water running through pipes, conversations 3 levels away. It is too much. It will settle. You will learn to filter the noise. I will teach you." He stroked her hair, which had paled to white during the transition, pure and striking against her now porcelain skin. "Look at me, Natasha." She raised her eyes to his, and in them he saw wonder and fear and joy all mingled together. "Is it always this intense?" "At first, yes. Your senses are heightened, your body stronger, your mind sharper. It will take time to adjust." "I'm so thirsty." "I know, that is the hunger. We will address it carefully, teach you control." Iskander helped her sit up, watching her marvel at the easy strength in her limbs. "How do you feel?" "Powerful, terrified, alive in a way I've never felt before." She looked at him, and her new vampire eyes were luminous in the dim light. "Thank you. For all of it. For saving me, for loving me, for giving me this choice." "Thank you for choosing me," Iskander said, "for trusting me enough to take this leap." She kissed him, and it was different now, harder, more urgent. They were equals in a way they had not been before, matched in strength and speed and hunger. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless from old habit rather than necessity, Natasha laughed. "This is going to take some getting used to. You have centuries to practice." "Centuries," she repeated, testing the word. "That seems like a long time." "It will pass faster than you think, but we will fill it well." Over the following months, Iskander trained Natasha in every aspect of vampire life. She learned to hunt without killing, to move through the shadows unseen, to use her new senses and strengths. She learned the politics of the court, the delicate balance they maintained with the human world, the ancient laws that governed their kind. She was a quick study, absorbing everything with the fierce intelligence that had first attracted him. And she was happy, genuinely happy, in a way she had never been as a human. The fear that had haunted her eyes for so long was gone, replaced by confidence and peace. They worked together to manage the court, Iskander handling the broader political concerns while Natasha focused on the day-to-day operations. She had a gift for leadership, for seeing what people needed and providing it. Under her guidance, the court flourished, becoming a place where vampires from across Europe came to seek refuge or counsel. And through it all, their love deepened. They were partners in every sense, equal and balanced. The intensity of those early days never faded, but it was joined by something more sustainable. Trust, respect, understanding, the foundations of a relationship built to last centuries. Natasha saw Mira occasionally, always carefully, always from a distance. She watched her sister build a life, go to university, fall in love, eventually marry. It hurt watching Mira age while she remained frozen, but it was a pain she could bear. Because she had chosen this, and she did not regret it. When Mira died, peacefully in her sleep at the age of 87, Natasha mourned. But she also celebrated, because her sister had lived a full, happy life, free from the chains that had once bound them. That was all she had ever wanted. Iskander held her through the grief, understanding in the way only an immortal could. He had lost people too, over his long life. The pain never completely faded, but it became bearable with time. "She loved you," he said gently. "She knew you were still watching over her, even from afar. That gave her comfort." "I hope so," Natasha whispered. "I hope she knew she was never alone." She knew. 5 years after her turning, Natasha approached Iskander with an idea. They were in their private chambers, a space they had gradually made their own, with books and art and comfortable furniture. Iskander was reading, and Natasha was supposed to be working on court correspondence, but instead, she was watching him with a thoughtful expression. "What if we created a sanctuary?" she said. Iskander looked up. "A sanctuary?" "For humans escaping situations like mine, trafficking, abuse, cults, a place where they could come and be safe, no questions asked. We have the resources, the space, the power to protect them." Iskander considered the idea. It would be risky. It would draw attention to the court, potentially expose us. We could be careful, use intermediaries, work through existing organizations. But we could make a real difference, Iskander. We could save people the way you saved me. He studied her, seeing the passion in her eyes, the determination. This was important to her, born from her own experience. How could he refuse? "Very well. We will try, but carefully and with safeguards in place." Natasha's face lit up, and she crossed the room to kiss him soundly. "Thank you. This means everything to me." They established the sanctuary within the year, working with human allies to create a network of safe houses and resources. Natasha oversaw the operation personally, ensuring that every person who came to them received the help they needed: food, shelter, counseling, legal assistance, protection. It was dangerous work, bringing them into contact with some of the worst elements of human society. But it was also deeply rewarding. Natasha watched people heal, watched them rebuild their lives, and it gave her a sense of purpose beyond the court. Iskander supported her fully, providing resources and protection, stepping in personally when threats became too dangerous. They worked as a team, leveraging his power and her compassion to create something truly good. And in doing so, they honored the moment that had brought them together. The night a terrified woman had hammered on a vampire's door, begging for one night of safety, and the vow he had made that she would never go home again. She had not gone home. She had found something better. A partner, a purpose, a life filled with meaning and love. Decades passed, then centuries. The world above changed, technology advancing, nations rising and falling. But the court remained, adapting as it always had, surviving through the ages. Iskander and Natasha remained at its heart, constant and unchanging. Their love deepened with every passing year, seasoned by shared experience and mutual respect. They were a legend within vampire society, the king who had saved a human and the human who had chosen to become his equal. They faced challenges, of course, threats from other courts, conflicts with the human world, the constant danger of exposure. But they faced them together, and they always prevailed. And on quiet nights, when the court was settled and the work was done, they would retreat to their chambers and simply be together, talking, reading, making love, existing in the comfortable silence of two people who knew each other completely. "Do you ever regret it?" Iskander asked one such night, holding her close. "Regret what?" "Choosing this, giving up your human life." Natasha was quiet for a moment, considering. "No, I miss aspects of it, yes. The sun, the taste of food, the simplicity of mortality, but I do not regret the choice. How could I when it gave me you?" "You gave me something too," Iskander said softly. "Hope, purpose, a reason to care about the future beyond simple survival. I had forgotten what it felt like to love someone, to want to build rather than simply maintain. You reminded me." She turned in his arms, kissing him gently. "Then we saved each other." "Yes, I believe we did." They lay together in the darkness, content. Outside their chambers, the court thrived. Above them, the city slept. And in this small space, carved out of centuries in stone, two people who should never have met had found something rare and precious. They had found home, Not the home Natasha had fled from, full of fear and chains. And not the cold, empty halls Iskander had inhabited for too many years, but a new home, built together, a place of safety and love and endless possibility. Iskander had vowed she would never go home again, and he had kept that vow. Because home was not a place, it was a person. It was this, right here, right now. It was forever, and forever, they both knew, was going to be beautiful.